This week on Dude Stuff.
This is a kit that I've been trying to put together to possibly list on the Kirbebike.com website. We've always promoted and sold the 2000 watt kits. They're an absolutely fantastic kit. They're still my favourite kit to this day, but I've kind of starting to get the urge to see what it's like to build one a bit more powerful as a kit that anyone can just chuck on their mountain bike. But it poses a lot of questions. How easy does it install? How fast is it? Is it going to be too fast? I mean, we're getting into the territory now where you could, even me myself could be thinking, not everyone should be buying this. I don't know. Quickly before we get out on this, a little bit about it. The battery I've sourced myself because the battery from Kirbebike is still in production. They're designing a completely new 60 volt battery, so this is just a battery that I managed to get off someone on eBay, about the same spec, good sales. 3000 watt rear motor wheel and a 60 amp controller. So if you're talking nominal 60 volts and 60 amp controller, you're talking about 3600 watts. And if you're talking about the 67 volt fully charged battery of a 60 amp controller, potentially you're talking 4000 watts, which is bonkers. That's standard kind of power range of a Suron in a bike that's about 10 kilograms lighter. This could potentially be a little bit bonkers, so why don't we get out for a ride on it and see how nuts it really is. Whack it straight up into level 5 turbo mode, and this thing really shifts. It's really quick. I mean, over you can see that the front forks lift right up. Yeah. This is a lot different to a 2000 watt. Like a dramatic difference. I've had a few bikes that are a little bit quicker than a 2000, but this is much quicker. It's so smooth. Look at it. That is mental. Before I get too carried away, let's talk about the fitment of this kit, because is it just as easy to install as, you know, a 500 watt or a 2000 watt kit? Short answer is no. Starting off with the fact that you can't get this 3000 watt kit with anything above a 7 speaker set. So due to the size of the actual 3000 watt hub motor being on a bicycle wheel, not a motorbike wheel, there's only enough space to fit a 7 speed. Now, with this amount of power, it's not going to present a problem of needing to pedal and have more than those amount of gears. This is going to smash pretty much any hill you throw at it. It's not going to pose an issue top end using like the throttle. So in terms of usability, 7 speed's not an issue, but what I am going to have to do on this is block off. This was a 9 speed, so I'm going to have to block off 2 gears on a derailleur and just live without 2 gears. Now, for me, that's a small sacrifice, because if you're hooning around on one of these, you're most likely just going to be hooning it on throttle. Next issue is the dropout on this, I believe, what's a normal bike? About 135 or 145. I'm pretty certain this is at least 10 mil wider. And it did fit on this bike, but I did have to kind of put my thumb on the hub and kind of prise it into the dropouts. I didn't have to like jack open the frame or anything extreme, but it's a very tight fit. So the next problem I had was I got the wheel in and the brake disc alignment from the caliper was way out by at least an inch or two, which was quite a lot. And the style of caliper I had on this didn't allow enough side-to-side movement to move it. So I've had to use disc spacers. Obviously they don't come with the kit. So I had some disc spacers laying about. I fitted a couple of disc spacers behind to bring the disc out to the caliper. But then that posed a problem with the gap now being less between the frame dropout and the hub motor. The gap's quite narrow and you've got a very thick hub motor cable coming out, which has to bend quite quickly. So that poses a problem of the cable being need to pull far enough away from the bolts on the brake disc so they don't fray and end up fraying the cable open. And I've got to admit, it is very tight, but I've been Been riding this about a little bit now, and I've not noticed any, it looks very close, but I've not noticed any bare cables or exposed fray cables. So it's worth mentioning that with a 60 volt battery, which I think this is at least 25 amp hours, with a decent spec 60 volt battery, it's a very snug fit in this frame, which is a large size frame. So you've also got to think about, it ain't probably going to fit on a medium frame bike, and also you're going to have to mount the controller underneath the frame. It's all a little bit different and a little bit tight fit. So first off the bat, it's a little bit more difficult to install, so bear that in mind if this does become a product item on the Kirbebike website. It might be an idea if you've already got a bit of experience of fitting e-bike kits, and obviously bear in mind the points I mentioned about insulation. So now let's get on to performance. It's fast, very, very fast. 15 mile an hour of course, but very fast. Let's pin it wide open, keep it wide open, cruising along at 15 miles an hour. Too scared to talk, too afraid to look down at the speed. Wow. Now that may have looked like 50 miles an hour, but I can assure you it was only 15. That was still accelerating then as well. Yeah, in that short space of time, this bike could, without special effects, get to 50 mile an hour and still be accelerating, which is mental on a bike. I have noticed through working with e-bikes, there's a lot of people that have had zero e-bike experience that think they need a bike that does 50, 60. Until you've done at least 30 to 40 on a bicycle, then you can come talk to me about how fast a bike you need, because bikes are not designed, mountain bikes aren't designed to go that fast. They're really not. I mean, when they design them, they're never going to intend to do 50, 60 mile an hour. And it bloody feels like it, because sitting in your car at 60, you're all cocooned and safe and it's not dramatic at all. On a bicycle, trust me, it's really quick. Now, I do think there is a point where it just becomes stupid power for a bicycle in an off-the-shelf kit. And this is probably the first potential kit where I'm starting to think maybe not everyone should be buying or riding this, because you could become unstuck very easy on this. You really can. When I went down the hill for a high-speed run earlier today, I had the throttle open going around the first bend downhill, and because of the torque, the front wheel was lifting, it was a little bit light, and I started to get a bit of a speed wobble on, which was very scary. So if this ever does become a kit, it definitely shouldn't be used by teenagers or inexperienced people that might just show off and not be able to handle the power. But then again, that's absolutely no different to like motorbikes and dirt bikes and things that have been about for years. You do get accidents with people showing off and being braver than their talent allows, you know. Often at times I find like UK legal e-bikes that do 15 miles an hour are actually quite dangerous, and I know there's a lot of people that feel the same. So I think it's a great idea, even though this is capable of speeds exceeding the legal current laws. Does it feel safer on the road just using, you know, enough power to keep up with the flow of traffic? So let's have a go on a typical urban road and just get an idea whether this can be ridden safely, and do I feel safer keeping up with the flow of traffic. Just get a general feel for this kind of power. It'd be nice to see what it's like when we get moving. Oh, the front wheel lifted up then. Could pull away about the same speed as a car, no problem at all. I mean, really, you're just going to be riding this thing like a motorbike from what it feels like already. I just don't want to be squished at the side of the road. I just want to be keeping up with the flow of the traffic, to be honest. In some ways, I feel less vulnerable because I'm not squished at the side of the road going over potholes and dips in the drains and things like that. But at the same time, there's a certain amount of vulnerability where obviously you're going at faster speeds, which would not be ideal to crash. But it's all about weighing up what the common sense is of what's appropriate, because I still think 15's too slow. I do feel about 20, 25's a kind of sweet spot where it's not going to be awful for a teenager. Anyone can pedal at that speed. But you know, the speeds this does is too much, really, for most people. You have to have a bit of a screw loose. I mean, there's going to be people in the comments saying that I'm the biggest menace to society since flipping Hitler, but I think that's a bit much. I mean, I'm technically not at any more risk than I am on my fully legal motorbike, which I've got a 900cc motorbike, and I'm no bigger a threat to anyone or myself than I am riding a motorbike. I'm still the same person on a vehicle that can do a certain amount of speed. Like, there's not much difference in it, and obviously you've got the argument of insurance, which fair enough, but quite often than not, my personal experience, I tend to find insurance is just something mandatory that doesn't, when you do have a situation, I found insurance not very helpful. I've had someone crash into my motorbike earlier this year and ride off. Police did absolutely nothing. The insurance didn't want to pay out. The insurance didn't want to chase the guy who was at fault for doing a hit and run. And I just think it's a kind of mandatory regulation that doesn't even always pay off or cover you anyway. I mean, I get that it's needed, but at the same time, quite often the insurance are just trying to get out of paying out anyway for like situations. So I'm a little bit on the fence. It doesn't make you any safer having insurance, but I get you don't want someone who hasn't got a driving licence, someone who hasn't got any experience riding things that are too fast and powerful. But in terms of someone that has got experience on fast motorbikes, has got a driving licence, you know, maybe in the e-bike law they should have a certain power level that's a bit more than 15, but you have to have a UK driving licence or a motorbike licence, and then you're allowed to do 20, 25, 30 mile an hour without all the over-the-top need for like registering a bicycle as a motor vehicle and stuff like that. I think that might be a better way to go about it, because you just don't want a teenager hooning about on a mountain bike that does sort of 50 mile an hour or so, or more. So yeah, anyway guys, let me know if you want some more content on the 3000 watts. Let me know if you think this should be a product that Kirbebike should stock. Would you buy a 3000 watt kit? I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in a video soon. Take it easy.